Hello and welcome, everybody. If this is your first episode, we're cracking one open. We're happy to have you. I'm Nick Cody. This is my co-host, Jamison Edwards, and we're just here to talk Seattle Kraken hockey. We're in the preseason mode right now, and we've got a lot to talk about today. A big subject is ads are going to be on NHL hockey sweaters. Our resident Caps fan and soon-to-be Seattle Kraken fan, Jamison Edwards, what do you want to see on your Caps jerseys this fall?
On my Caps jerseys, probably Red Bull logo.
Ooh, yeah, you've been pretty big on the Red Bull recently, and I think we're gonna have to talk about that in our penalty box when we get to that, my friend. But for those of you that are unfamiliar, however you found us, thank you for joining us. We hope you stick around. This is Cracking One Open, where we're cracking one open and just talking hockey with our buds, and hopefully that's you and you're drinking along right now. We start with our face-off like every episode, but first, if you haven't already, please subscribe, follow us, like this video on YouTube if that's how you're watching, or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform, please subscribe, give us a good review, let your friends know that you like us, and if you find any mistakes with the show, let us know, and we will go ahead and pay for them in our penalty box. But before we get to that, we have to have our face-off where we'd let you know exactly what we're drinking today. And this week, as I promised last week, I will not be having any more of the heavy beers. I will be sitting here with a half vodka, half seltzer, very responsibly. And also, I have, from one of our listeners who emailed in, I have been informed that I don't have to drop beer to lose weight for our Miami plans, Jamison. I've been told Michelob Ultra, while it does not taste fantastic, will be the ticket. So I'm going to give that a try today. And that's what we're going to be cracking open. What do you have over there? I'm going to take a wild guess, and it's not Red Bull, but I'm going to say it's probably whiskey.
Whiskey diet. It's
fantastic. And while I know you have never disclosed your brand of whiskey in particular, I think it's important to note that the Seattle Kraken have officially announced that their whiskey partner will be Jack Daniel's. So, I mean, not unexpected, but I mean, important to note in this podcast for sure. And while I've enjoyed experimenting with the Kraken the past couple episodes, we open our penalty box right now with my regrets about Kraken. So first of all, good face off, and look forward to a great episode with all of you.
Release the Kraken!
Cheers.
Nastravi.
So if this is your first episode, this is our penalty box. And if you're back, I hope you contributed. You let us know the mistakes you thought you found in the previous episodes, but I know what I will be drinking for. And last episode, speaking of Kraken, I had way too large a pour over here in our custom Kraken glasses. And yeah, I'm just going to apologize. I noticed once I started stumbling over my words in our our tribute period there, and I decided to finish my drink, I was like, I'm in trouble way too deep. So I want to remind all those of you that are trying to drink along at home, do it responsibly. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with water, alcohol, juice, anything, just be responsible and know your limitations. And last week, too big a pour for me, and I recognize that today. Little kind of reverse psychology to drink for drinking too much, but hey, in moderation.
I mean, I'm somewhere in the same boat. I caught myself on a few long-winded tangents last week, probably for similar reason. We already made the joke about the Red Bull, which I've been doing a little bit too much of recently. Should probably cut back on that. So I'm going to kind of combine the two and just cheers, mate.
Yeah. And a big reason that we are taking these cuts is a huge announcement that we have before we get to period one. We've mentioned it a little bit, but we are planning our very first live episode coming to you on YouTube October 24th, the day after the first home Kraken match. I think that's going to be amazing. We're going to be in Miami. We're going to have a test episode or two before we get to that. Stay tuned. We'll let you know how you can get involved on that. But we want all of you there with us, talk about that first home game. And man, it's going to be so much fun, which is why we're already planning out to try and make sure Jameson's Red Bull intake and my dark beer intake is lowered a little bit so we can make it to Miami and not be sweating the entire time we record a live podcast. So we hope you join us for that. It's going to be a great time. And yeah, I think that's a great time to transition to our first period. Cheers, mate.
Release
Once more.
the Kraken!
So what we wanted to start with in our deep dive this week, and for those of you that are new, we know we got a lot of new listeners this week. We thank you for joining us. We talk about the Seattle Kraken in our first period. We take a deep dive on one or two subjects or just the team overall. And this week, we've got a lot to talk about. The ice slab has officially been poured. I think people have been getting so excited this week. You can finally visualize not just, the NHL game showing what it's going to be like, but you can really see what the home ice is going to look like. And I know it gets me excited with all the other renovations in the arena. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see a game. I can't wait to get Climate Pledge Arena, but even more so, I'm just so impressed with the thoughts that they've put into this place. If you don't already know, Climate Pledge Arena is going to be taking this massive amount of rain Seattle gets and redistributing it around the area in useful and resourceful ways. And within the arena, they're going to have 20 different water stations for refillable water, which is going to be fantastic. And also, I guess it reduces so much water waste that it's up to 20,000 gallons or something I saw per event. So every single one of those home ice matches is going to just help our environment so much more in the Seattle area. And I think that's really important. I know we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted to give it a little recognition. And I think something you noticed just taking a look is not only that, but they're reaching out with this ice project and local ice arenas to try and promote more hockey involvement. What do you think about that? And what is a great way for people to start getting on the ice and getting involved on a recreational basis?
Right. What really caught my eye, I want to say there was 7-8 rinks that they were focusing on, and one of them being your very own Linwood Center there. I forget the exact name of it.
The Linwood Center, baby. Linwood Ice Center. Nice and easy to remember. I was like, hey, I got to get over there.
But yeah, I mean, from what I could tell, just based on the introductory thing, press release, however it's referred to, there was a free introductory skate where they evaluate your abilities. I would assume, depending on the turnout, it would be something along the lines of a learn to skate, learn to, stick handle, maybe, just get the community involved, which I think is really cool. I think it's a very hands-on way of approaching teaching people that haven't necessarily had that NHL team in their local areas to just see what it's all about. I mean, that's one of the most fun things that I can say growing up was seeing all these games, but then being able to get on the ice myself and thinking, well, I saw so-and-so. I mean, at the time for me, it was Jeremy Roenick, pull a little move, or like Dennis Savard with the spinorama, which was insane back in the day at the time. And just being able to try it yourself. I mean, there's really nothing more rewarding than learning a new skill. So I think reaching out and sponsoring that project is a really, really solid sort of fundamental idea that, for me personally, I don't know too many teams that have really done that, especially in their inaugural season.
Wow. And that's awesome. I saw on Instagram with this Kraken Community Iceplex account that they've been going around and offering, youth events and activities on the weekends, and seeing guys, little kids get up on the ice from a knee for the first time. That's some. And then I was sitting there thinking like, man, I want to go do that. And then I see, half the people going down at the first try. I'm like, oh no, I might be that guy, pushing 300 pounds as an offensive lineman in my past, and constantly fluctuating up to there. I really was thinking about it, and then just kept being overwhelmed. Like, I don't want to go out on the ice, embarrass myself. But this opportunity they're offering through, their skate lessons, their adult learn to play, and their skate evaluations. So, if you're going out and going for a team, what division should you be in? What are you prepared for? So you're just not out there just, potentially hurting someone else or yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, that's going to be the coolest thing to me, because I have no doubt that they're seasoned, maybe not hockey players. I mean, I'm sure there are quite a lot, but just people of multiple levels of ability going out. And I'm looking forward to hearing the results of that, because especially with so many different rinks involved, one of the biggest things, say for kind of how now I play men's league, or will go out to play just pickup or whatever, it's always, is it worth going out there if there's only going to be 10 people? I mean, even that's a lot for a pickup session, depending when you're going. I don't know how it would necessarily apply to other areas, but out here a lot of the time it's 6 o'clock in the morning. So you get guys going before work or whatever. But I think specifically, again, because it's structured by the Kraken, you might even get some of the roster guys coming out just to be part of the experience.
Maybe. I mean, it'd be interesting.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, and I think the community is strong around here, surrounding areas. That's why there's so many ice plexes. I think I'll definitely be interested and be looking into it. Maybe not this fall, potentially in the winter, or maybe next year. When I have a little more free time, hopefully. But right now, it's something that I'm heavily considering. We'll have my friend Brandon on pretty soon. We talked about him last week. Goalkeeper, locally plays a lot in a lot of different rec leagues. So he was someone I reached out to and to try to get an idea of things. And he was already suggesting these same arenas that they are already partnering with. So it's really good to see that they're going and taking that outreach. And in terms of other moves they've made this week, which we're excited to talk about, is we don't have as many roster moves to talk about, but we've got some coaching hires to talk about. And I think someone that's a Pens fan is going to be really familiar with the guy we've hired to be an assistant AHL coach with our, what was it? The Charlotte Checkers. Wow. Yeah. Really looking forward to being a Checkers fan in the future.
I don't know if you guys have the fast food chain Checkers. That's I've never been there, but and that's actually me being dead serious. But that's all I can think when I hear the Charlotte Checkers. But yeah, that's Dan Bilesma, who I know him mostly from the Capitals Penguins rivalry ever since Crosby's been in Pittsburgh, Ovechkin's been in Washington. He took over in was it 2010? 2009, 2008, 2009 rather.
Whatever year I remember. Only thing I remember is it was his first year and they won the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah. And then, so a few interesting statistics. He was the fastest coach ever to make 250 wins in the NHL.
Wow.
2014, April, named the not that year. He had already won at Jack Adams, which is the most outstanding coach in the NHL. Was it April of 2014? He made it to 250 wins in 394 games, which, if you just think about the sheer win percentage, is insane.
Yeah.
Granted, you get to work with Sidney Crosby and say Yevgeny Malkin, guys like that in their absolute prime. I think that might have even been when Gary Roberts was still around, which is insane. I mean, there's even Mark Recchi at that. I mean, there's been so many guys that have flown through that system, especially older guys that contributed to the cup runs back in the day. But then he was fired from the Penguins 2 months after his record-breaking 250 and 394. He went on to work with Buffalo for a couple years. I want to say from 2015 to 2017. Yeah. So I mean,
Well, if you're wrong, you'll drink for it next week.
yeah. I mean, again, he's got a cup under his belt. I'm actually kind of surprised that they're sending him to Charlotte.
Yeah, especially when it's an assistant job. So the partnership is going to be between the Florida team and the Seattle team to have the same AHL team. And I guess so. The deal is that Florida will get to choose the head coach and we get the assistant coach. But yeah, again, with a resume like that, to be the assistant there is all like even just going down to the AHL, it's interesting.
I think he was struggling to find a spot and didn't want to do anything shy of an NHL position. I don't know that factually, but just based on the rundown of where he was year by year, really threw me for a bit of a loop, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes sense too, because you say that resume and just fastest to that many wins. It blows your mind, and at least it looks like a good hire. For now, I think it's something that we can look as Kraken fans and be positive about. But it wasn't the only coaching hire. We made a goalie coach hire, right?
Yeah, so that's Andrew Allen, who, to the best of my knowledge, never played in the NHL. If I remember off the top of my head, he won the Kelly Trophy in 2005. Didn't write that down. It might be slightly off.
Ooh, well, we'll figure it out. We'll get our research staff on it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of drinking to random stuff. Just small bits of misinformation here and there. Yeah. But what I did note, which a few of the things that I thought would really catch your attention. I do believe he worked with Dan Bosma with the Sabres.
Oh, wow.
For maybe a year, part of a year. He worked, I want to say for about 7 years with the Japanese national team as a goaltending coach.
Interesting.
Which that sounds more to be a sort of international experience rather than or maybe it was a learning experience working with I don't want to take a crap on the Japanese national team, but you're not playing with the cream of the crop as far as
it doesn't mean as much as Russia, Canada,
Sweden, even Finland. Yeah. I mean, you can go down the line as much as you really want to. Yeah. Just saying Japan's not really up there. Yeah. That being said, he put in his time there. He coached at the St. Louis University in the NCAA. He was actually here in Chicago for, I believe, only 1 year, but that was with the Rockford Ice Hogs, who are the AHL affiliate for the Blackhawks, or at least were. I think they still are. At that time, they certainly were. Getting back to Dan Bosma really quickly.
Yeah.
Just because we haven't covered Dave Hextall almost at all.
Yeah, true.
Part of the reason I find it interesting that they go with Hextall over Dan Bosma rather than the other way around. And this isn't me trying to denigrate Hextall and his accomplishments, but he was an assistant coach in Toronto the past 2 years, having been the first NHL coach to jump directly from the NCAA to the NHL. I believe he went to Philadelphia a handful of years ago and then was picked up for the past 2 seasons in Toronto.
Wow.
And I mean, not to have anybody listening necessarily understanding what a drastic change Toronto has made over the course of the past couple of years. I would argue a couple interesting contracts in there, but they made the playoffs for the first time in, I don't even know, probably since Darcy Tucker played, which was early 2000s. Just Toronto has been struggling a long time. And if he was part of that system, Not saying it's 100% his doing, but when you're only there for 2 years and they're the 2 years that have looked good, it's got to be part of it, especially being part of the coaching staff. So
Interesting. So yeah, a lot of coaching connections there, and it's been it's interesting to see those hires. There hasn't been a lot of new, I guess. There's been a lot of talk, at least, about people being signed by the Kraken. But in terms of coaches, that's been the biggest moves this week to talk about, and really a great way to wrap up our first period, my friend. Good first period to you, and
yeah.
let's go ahead and call it a period with our
Release the Kraken!
That's how we do it.
Cheers, mate.
So as we teased earlier, we will be spending a decent amount of our second period talking about ads and the impact that's going to have around the NHL. But we like to go around the NHL in our second period. And first, we're going to talk about big news that just dropped yesterday. Arizona and the Coyotes. What's going to happen there, and what is the potential in your mind, Jameson, for this team to move?
So they're going to move one way or the other.
Yeah.
As of right now, so they have to be out completely. Team management offices out of the Gila River Arena. I always forget the name of that because it's so weird.
Good save, though. Good save.
That's why I take my notes, my bad. But no, so they've been there 18 years, basically. At one point, they were owned by the league because they just weren't run particularly properly. I mean, people like to make the joke that Wayne Gretzky coached there for a couple seasons and even he couldn't save the team. I mean, in fairness, having a fantastic player as a coach, not always your greatest strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe you put more people in the stands because you get to see Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah. For a couple games too. I mean, that's going to run its course as quickly as the team does.
Sure. The interesting thing is that they owe the city of Glendale $1.5 million right now.
Whew. Which
conclusively, if there was one team that was going to really, really suffer from not having people in the stands, it was going to be Phoenix.
Yeah.
Well, Arizona. They have traditionally been one of the worst performing attendance teams. They've hovered between 28th and 30th for pretty much their entire tenure as an organization.
Whew. Damn.
Which is not good.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah. I think they were 4th last year, but that's taking into account most rinks had 0 people in the stands.
Yeah, and considering how everyone in Arizona was taking it versus everybody else, a lot of people there were willing to take that risk over other places. So makes sense.
So yeah, the interesting thing will be one of the big talks is that they'll be moving to Tempe. And I haven't fact checked this, but based on just some of the conversations via social media threads and what have you, I remember someone said that they've been trying to move to Tempe, but then Arizona State University was going to go there, and then the arena shut the Coyotes down. So there's a lot of weird stuff going there.
Yeah.
I know you were talking before we started recording about Portland.
Well, we can get to that. that. I would love to introduce that. But those of you that are joining us fresh, if you came from the John Canzano BFT, where I got to mention this on the radio this week, essentially, John posed the question to me on air when I mentioned our podcast about the possibility of the Coyotes coming up and being in Portland and creating this rivalry. And I had to kind of I didn't want to pause him and say, dismiss the idea, because I love all my family. I'm down in Portland, all my friends and fans, but it's not that likely. First, you guys got to start going to those Winterhawks games consistently. I know a lot of you do, but more do. It's got to be a big push there. And then you got to look at where you are here on the rankings, because Quebec, I think, is going to be the number one priority to get a team. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jameson, but I think that is going to have much higher precedence than Portland. And until Portland can get some things together, they can't even get the Oakland A's right now. So I don't think it's all that realistic. They have the infrastructure. I just don't know if there's that interest in hockey that we see right now with Kraken fans, especially. Like, that infrastructure of ice rinks everywhere just isn't there. I know the Mountain View Ice Arena was the closest thing to me. And even getting to that, the facilities just were not up to par for, someone my age to do anything more than just go free skate here and there for funsies. So I really think that the true hockey experience, before you let me know what you think is a realistic moving option, I think the hockey experience in Arizona or Portland, like, it's going to be so much more important to get it to a city that already is longing for this, instead of trying to develop it in naturally.
What I will say, as far as Portland is concerned, before I get into Quebec and Quebec City, one, you wouldn't have to reorganize the league in terms of conferences, which is, I think, one of the big reasons that Seattle got their team to begin with, because they had 16 teams in the East, 15 in the West, and they wanted to have that balance. Plus, you have a big geographical gap between, say, going to Vancouver, which, I mean, especially with COVID, you couldn't do anyway.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, what are you going to do? Go down to San Jose, go out to Vegas?
Yeah.
There was a just very visual gap in there.
Yeah.
That being said, with this insane response to season ticket holders and just general desire to go to Kraken games, that might speak really well for Portland, because then you wouldn't have people having to travel. I don't even know how many hours it would be from Portland to.
It's about 3. I mean, it depends on the day nowadays. Back in the day, I used to be able to hit that about like 2.5 when I lived Redmond area, which is east side. If you're trying to get into formerly known as Key Arena, Climate Pledge, wow, got me. But anyways, if you're going to make that trip, you can almost add during a big event, you can almost add an extra hour to it. So it's just safe to say anywhere 3 to 4 hours.
That's interesting that you bring that up, just based on timing alone. This is a tiny aside. I won't get too far into it, but with the Chicago Bears had the first game of their preseason against the Miami Dolphins. That backed up traffic for miles in every direction.
Yeah.
And then
a reminder to everyone, you're there in Chicago, right?
I'm in Chicago, yes. Yep. And I live on the southwest side of Chicago, so I quite literally drive by Soldier Field every single day.
Yeah, I can attest to it. Where the only reason I've seen it. Thank you, sir.
But also later that day, the Yankees were in town and they were playing. I don't even know what that field's called anymore. I'm just going to call it Comiskey, because that's what it should still be called, in my opinion, where the White Sox play, which is also on the southwest side. So it was just an influx of sports fans all over the place, and it was just wild to see. So, yeah, just as a state of reference, I know it's really difficult to compare the two cities, but a friend of mine went to the Sox game. He lives 20 minutes from the stadium. He said it took him 3.5 hours to get through the doors from when he left.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've been down to Portland, but I know that I've heard, at least from friends that go to Trailblazers games in the NBA, that Moda Center, which is I don't think Moda Center is where they act. I believe it's actually built to facilitate hockey. I'm not sure if that's where the Portland Winterhawks are playing, but I do know that it's able to facilitate hockey. It's just getting down there already is kind of a mess for people, unless you take the MAX, which is, public transit. I think the biggest thing is that's holding Portland back right now is perception. It doesn't feel like that is a team, a city or a market that's thirsting for hockey or anything more than, right now the fan base for the Trailblazers, it doesn't feel like is all that passionate anyways. I feel like besides, the hope they cling on with Damian Lillard and all that, I feel like the Portland fan base is just kind of mild, and they've got so many things going on right now, I think, in the Portland market to focus on besides sports, that it could be really successful. But right now, I think the national perception is it's not the right market versus, say, Quebec.
Yeah, I mean, getting into some of the Quebec statistics, because everybody likes to throw around the idea that Quebec had a team and it failed, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The league and the game itself are drastically different from when Quebec was not only a team, but a thriving team. This is French, so forgive me. I'm just going to drink ahead of time because I'm going to bastardize this word.
Go for it, my friend.
Coulisse?
Sounded great to me.
So that only held 15.2 thousand people. Granted, Quebec is not an enormous city. I got to turn off my Flux again because it just kicked in and all my colors went off. Please hold. So in any case, some of the numbers, it wasn't because Quebec wasn't good as a team. The Nordiques, which loosely translates for non-French speakers such as myself to the Northerners or the Northmen, something along those lines. So they were a team from, I believe it was 1972 through 94, 95. They were a victim also of not only a struggling market where they didn't have a huge arena, they were getting all these new young players. Just going to lob a few names out, first ballot Hall of Famers at the time: Joe Sakic, Matt Sundin, Peter Forsberg. Going down the line, maybe not Hall of Famers, but Adam Foote, Deadmarsh. In net, they had Jocelyn Thibault, Garth Snow at the time. Big names, at least as far as mid-late 90s hockey was concerned. And so when they had their last season, they had a lockout. So they only played 48 games.
Wow.
That season, they finished with the best record in the NHL, 30, 13, and 5, which led to them getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the New York Rangers, who won the cup that year. So you can't really trash them too hard for losing in the first round.
Yeah.
That being said, that year they did name Mark Crawford their coach officially. Peter Forsberg was deemed ready to come over from Sweden and play. Quebec goes to Denver, became the Avalanche. 2 years later, they win the cup. And that was after New Jersey had that ridiculously bizarre run in 95, but 95, 96, I should say.
Yeah.
And every following year, those were the kind of like the end of the glory days of that era of hockey, where pretty much whoever came out of the West was going to be the team that was winning the cup. And it was always a bloodbath between Colorado and Detroit. You're talking about the golden era of Detroit with Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, Brendan Shanahan, Chris Osgood.
What we grew up on at our age, like seeing dominant hockey, like a modern day New England Patriots in the NHL.
Right. And this is just in the Western Conference. This isn't even getting into some of the reasonably good teams that came out of the East. It was just the Western Conference Finals were going to be the most entertaining games in hockey at the time. Yeah. Patrick Waugh skating out to the red line with his helmet off and just going, come on, because he can't legally cross the red line until the other goalie skates out. And those were some bizarre games, but damn, were they fun to watch.
Damn. So based on your evidence, you agree Quebec probably number one. Just real quick as we wrap this up, move into our second and last topic in the around the NHL period too. What is just another market you think that hockey would just be either successful in, or you'd like to personally see an NHL team there?
I mean, I know it's been tossed around that Kansas City. I don't see that happening. I would rank Kansas City even lower than Portland. I do genuinely think the two biggest potentials, should they leave Arizona, because granted, I think they went with the PR move, so it's hard to disbelieve them when they say we want to stay in Arizona and keep playing for the Valley community, however they phrased it in the press release. But I think they give Tempe another go. I think Tempe continues to just say, nah. I mean, I don't see them I don't even know if Phoenix has a rink proper, considering they've been playing in Glendale this whole time, which kind of was a recipe for disaster if you really just break it down.
And all the competition in there. I mean, I've played bowl games there in Glendale. It's just that market is saturated for sports.
Right. And I think it doesn't bother me. I have no emotional ties to the Coyotes as an organization. But to me, the way that the city talked about it was saying, we didn't make this decision overnight. It wasn't an easy thing to do. But the plain and simple fact is that the Coyotes just, one, aren't paying their bills, and two, we can use that arena for things that people actually care about in Arizona, which is such a slap in the face. I mean, they didn't say it verbatim, but that was the insinuation of, the whole thing. Because again, the guy that owns, I didn't write his name down.
Uh-oh. You're adding them up for yourself, my friend.
Yeah, it's like Andrew. Oh God, I'm just gonna look it up and take a drink really fast.
Look it up, my friend. You do that, and the biggest thing is I have family in Arizona, in Tucson specifically, and it's always been. I've even actually been down. I remember when I was a little kid, we went to a small ice arena and caught a game, just because that is a great way to just chill off. But as we've talked about in our third episode, ticket pricing right now is comparable right now with the NBA. And if you're going to be doing that to just go get some AC and catch a game that you don't really care about, you're going to be able to find different options in that market right there in Glendale. You could just go to the mall and walk around and you're going to have the same experience. So I know that, the biggest thing I think for them is, if you're going to sell tickets in that market, you're already going to have to be, cutting down the prices for certain people, because the hockey interest is going to be minimal. How many people in, even the entire state of Arizona play hockey? I would be very interested to know that, because like we talked about, that community outreach is important, but it was already had a foundation with the ice rinks that are already available here in Seattle, and trying to even compare that to Arizona is kind of silly, because even the ones that probably, I bet you the one I've seen a game in Tucson, that probably is not doing very well right now.
I mean, it's funny that you bring up how many people in Arizona actually play hockey.
Yeah.
This is a relative total aside, but Austin Matthews, who is on the cover of NHL 22, just announced today, grew up in Scottsdale.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's one of those $11 million players up in Toronto.
Wow.
It's actually the second time in 3 years that he'll be on the cover of an NHL EA Sports game, which is
interesting,
kind of bizarre.
Which we could talk about next week. We'll talk about the game maybe next week, but couple nice Seattle Kraken looks there. But overall, not all that impressed. I used to love playing those games, and the graphics should be so much better, I would think, for nowadays.
Honestly, I haven't played one since maybe 2009.
You probably could still play it today, and it would probably be better.
I'm just sick of paying $60 for the same game with updated rosters every year.
We can have this conversation next week, because I could talk all day about EA Sports, my friend. And 2K, and at this point, it used to be 2K were the good guys, but hey, nowadays It's copy and paste, and
Activision.
kind of like we do with the format of these episodes. It's just copy and paste and just throw it down. give them the same thing repackaged with new subjects and a new roster every week, my friend.
Sure. Just going back because I have his name in front of me now. Alex Maruello, who he owns the Sahara in Las Vegas. He owns a food distribution company. Like, this guy is a multi-billionaire.
Whew.
So, but I can only imagine, because again, he bought them from the NHL.
Yeah.
Or some holding company associated with the NHL. I don't remember exactly what that was.
Yeah.
But he also owns Sierra Nevada, which is, yes. But I mean, you have to also think how within the scope of COVID, all that manufacturing, and then the resorts, and then you have a failing hockey team on top of it. So, I mean, I don't even want to go into any level of conjecture as to, not that it would matter as net worth or anything.
Thankfully, you don't have to. But one thing that's to finish out our second period, we're going to be talking about a great transition there, is to make up for money. The NHL has decided that they're going to have ad revenue made up on NHL sweaters. And we wanted to talk about this subject, but first and foremost, I wanted to say we are going to talk about it from a fun perspective first and foremost. And then at the end, as we wrap this period, we'll talk about what we really want to see, because I think that's very different from, what's possible out there. And in terms of ads, I'm very excited for the rules they have in place. I know a lot of people have been kind of getting all crazy about thinking that it'll take over all of the jerseys, but I think there at least are sets of rules in place to make sure that the ad logos are not going to be too obscene, crazy, all over the place. They're going to have a strict minimized area that they're going to be able to put promotions. And I think that with the market we're in Seattle, I have a lot of really interesting ideas that'll even tie into our third period for sponsors I want to see. But first and foremost, what do you think about the ads? How do you think it'll help the NHL? And, what are just some things you think about as this is a transition that feels like the NHL was holding back against for a long time?
Sure. It can be said, for as much as people dislike Gary Bettman, the commissioner, I think he was genuinely the last wall of defense or line of defense against having these. There was something absurd where it was roughly 50% of team revenue as far as ticket sales and stadium purchases went, be it merchandising, all of it's merchandising realistically.
Yeah.
But be it jersey sales, be it mini sticks, be it a Kraken flag,
Yeah.
But that accounted for over $1 billion in losses last year.
Wow.
For combined team owners.
Interesting.
And I mean, I've heard speculation as far as because they did have stickers on the helmets last year.
Yeah.
Which you don't even notice.
Yeah.
But that saved team owners a lot of financial loss.
Yeah.
As well as the sponsorship of the divisions by a number of different banks. I won't break them down, mostly because I don't remember them off the top of my head. It was such a passing thought, in my opinion, which to me, and I know there's going to be a lot of very, I don't want to say overly ideological people out there that are going to completely disagree with this, but to me, I don't care if it keeps teams playing, because we didn't specifically talk about the area of the patch. It's just 3 by 3.5 inches. It's not some of the pictures I showed you yesterday from the Swedish leagues. It's not going to be.
Yeah,
I don't even
right here. Yeah, this is just awful. So bad. I when you sent me this, I sat there and I was like, okay, I've been to some Sounders games where literally the Xbox logo dominates the uniform. I will
Right.
take that all day over this just Picasso of ads.
Right. And I mean, even if you look at some of the English or UK based soccer leagues too, I mean, you I don't know if it's the Premier League, whatever. I remember specifically looking up Manchester United, and their logo is so tiny compared to whatever
Everything
their
else, yeah.
sponsorships are.
Yeah.
And so this is not an idea that's new to hockey. And I mean, call it sacrosanct or whatever you want to attach on a verbal level. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Fair.
I know a lot of personally guys that I grew up playing with say, no, this is terrible. I don't want, say, Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record with an Arby's logo on his shoulder, which is, to me, that would just be funny.
They have the meats.
Right. Yeah. That's been something that has come up in conversation. And to me, if the only thing you can zero in on is a tiny logo that's helping pay for the team in probably an already losing environment as far as financials are concerned, I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Unless it is a Red Bull logo. And I'm sitting here thinking just what if the Red Wings just dropped Red Wings, just said Red Bull bias? We are the Red Bulls now. Would Jameson have to defect? Is an ad going to make you change any hockey allegiances?
Nah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, nothing within the scope of reasonability, I don't think. I mean, if you're gonna, I keep saying I'm just, but if it gets to the point where
it takes over the game, where you're noticing that more than being able to find the puck.
right, and that's an argument too with the other screenshot that I sent you. I'm trying to find the words for how I think there is a very delicate balance that has to be found.
Yeah.
I don't mind a patch on the arm.
Yeah.
I can see where someone would get really frustrated with it being directly over the crest.
Yep. Makes sense.
On say even just take a perfect example, an iconic logo like the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, Shea Weber's not playing next season. Okay, we'll take the Blackhawks. It's a good version of
Portland Winterhawks would agree for many years.
I'm just saying you have this iconic logo, then you have Jonathan Toews with a C, and then you have Benny's Beverage Depot, which
Dippin' Dots. Hey,
I mean,
here's the thing though. Let's wrap up this second period with I'm going to throw out a couple different ad ideas to you for the Seattle Kraken specifically. I want you to just give me the quick yes or no and your reaction. So start off, we'll make it really easy. The most predictable thing, we're going to go and create that competition with Tim Hortons up there in our Canadians. We got to go with Seattle's very local, very well known Starbucks. What if we get that logo? How do you feel about it? Yay or nay?
First impression is no.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, they've got every sponsorship they possibly need, and I think that's important in branding. What additional audience do you gain? And you are just stoking those Tim Horton fires, and that's a competition you don't want that heat. If you saw my episode last week, I was in Edmonton long enough to know you don't want that Tim Hortons heat.
See, to me, that would be the only reason to do it.
Stoke those flames. Yeah.
Because then you're going to have people coming across the border, or, I mean, even just whatever, just saying, I want to go over there with my Tim Hortons. I want to walk into an arena where the team is playing with Starbucks logos on their friggin' jerseys with Tim Hortons coffee in my hand.
Okay. We've already spent too much time on Starbucks. If they want it, they have it. How do you feel about Alaska Airlines?
I think it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibilities or reasonability. The what's the NBA center up there that's already sponsored by them?
The University of Washington's basketball arena is currently the Alaska Airlines Arena. So
That's
while
what I was thinking
Dubs
about.
down all day, I will say to UW fans, I will say that that's a fantastic sponsor, one that I know does really well for them. So good idea, and I think that's one of the things in there that you could get the logo just on there subtly enough that wouldn't make a big deal.
Sure, and I know they're already sponsoring some deals where if you buy tickets through them, you get some discounted rate to see away games or something like that. There was
Makes
some
sense.
sort of bundle deal that I saw pop up briefly on
Some partnership.
some advertisement. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel, especially with the recent, I guess in the past couple years and months, Boeing has not necessarily done so well in the public eye. Do you think that would be a sponsorship you think could get in there, maybe build that public trust a little bit more by sponsoring a hockey team?
I think it would bring up more questions than it would provide answers for Boeing to sponsor a team that calls Climate Pledge Arena their home rink.
Brilliant, sir. That
It,
you're a smart man, and that's why I have you on this show. So we're just gonna
it,
wipe that one from the slate. We got two more for you, okay? Before we get into our third period.
sure.
Oh, one kind of ties in the other. But first, I don't know your familiarity out there in Chicago, but as a Washingtonian, this brand is near and dear to my heart, especially as a big Washingtonian. The only way I was able to maintain 300 pounds through my high school and college career at times was through this brand, Costco. How would you like to feel if you saw Costco on there? And does it give you too many idiocracy vibes?
Oh, the whole welcome to Costco. I love
I
you.
love you. I'm glad that was your exact quote because that's every time I hear Costco now. That's my first thought. I go into Costco
Even
all the time, but I just can't stop thinking about that's someday where someone's going to get their college degree. We're not far off.
to the best of my knowledge, they're really good to their employees as well. I have a couple of friends that I think still work there. Um, I think there is a not so hidden level of irony in putting a patch to raise money for the team that just says Costco.
I do love that.
Uh,
Yay or nay?
I'm, I mean, I feel like I've said no to pretty much everything. So if there's been one so far, I would put that at number one as far as yeah, I guess.
We got a 1 seed. I think I've got one to finish out, kind of trying to lightning round this out so we can get to our fan tweets in the third period. But this ties into our fan tweets, thankfully. At Augie Ford was already on top of it because I was planning to, as you know, review these very special Bavarian meats, Seattle style smoked sausage made with cream cheese, bacon, and jalapeno. And I want to say, I am going to just go ahead and beg you guys. Bavarian meats, nothing goes better with your sausages, as I've tried, than having a little bit of Kraken one open, not only the podcast, but a brew or two. And I'm going to give my review here in a second. But first and foremost, what do you think? Logo's kind of like a fire breathing lion. We've got it up here right now. I know you saw the sausages. I think you agree with the brand decision. Do you think it passes at least for a small hockey logo?
To me, I would like something like that more than some enormous corporation that really doesn't need any more eyes on their logo. I would probably put that at number one now that it's come to that. That to me is a little more important than seeing. I know some of the stuff that's been tossed around being Amazon, which to me doesn't make sense. Yeah, I would much rather see something, especially that the team's already working with. I know we talked about Jack Daniels a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty cool just to have the circular number 7.
Yeah. Or
straight across.
the Kraken rum logo. All of those would be
Yeah,
great.
just
But I think it's a great note you mentioned Amazon to wrap on, because I think ultimately both of us would appreciate, with the amazing branding they've done with the logo and the uniforms already, that if the Seattle team, which already their arena, the naming rights were bought by Amazon to be climate pledge, because Amazon right now is in a position where, do you really grow your market or your branding by naming it Amazon Arena? No, everyone knows what Amazon is. And if anything, you just create more confusion. So what I would ultimately like as we wrap this period, and what I hope for, is we keep the uniforms as close as to how they are now. And if anything, we get a climate pledge arena, or nothing at all. And if Amazon just balls out and just pays to say, hey, let's keep it clean, because our fans will love that. And even if it's just the inaugural season and we make up for it in ticket sales, I'm all for it. And I think there are enough fans behind us that would agree. So I what do you see? Yay or nay to that idea?
I'd actually really like that. The biggest thing to me is, as you said, keeping it clean. I don't want these random sort of mass-produced patches that they're just going to slap on whatever. I want it to, even if you have to rework the logo a little bit to at least fit the color scheme or do something, I want it to be tasteful at the very least. I don't want to see something like those Swedish jerseys we were talking about earlier, where it's just, I don't know, we need to sew these onto the breezer covers now.
Yeah. Yep.
Just have everything all over the place, and there's no sort of artistic approach to developing. I wouldn't even mind seeing more patches, if it all flowed in, again, a tasteful manner. I'm not saying I'm gonna go out and say we should do that now, but if it really comes down to it and the league is struggling, the teams are struggling,
why not?
I'd be open to taking it one step at a time, for me personally.
We're in agreement, my friend. And what a great way to end the second period and go into our third period.
The Kraken!
So our third period and final period is where we go to Twitter, which I've already teased earlier. Twitter was already on to us. We were already sharing about the sausages, but then we got a new fan in @Augie Ford, who tweeted my main account @JustFollow61, which you can always tweet at, along with @Kraken1Open, to get our attention and get on the show. He said, @JustFollow61, I found a possible sponsor for your new podcast. Saw these today at Costco in Portland. And of course, it was the exact sausages that I already tested for all of you, to let you know if I give it the Kraken seal of approval. And I'm just going to say, oh my goodness. I cooked these up on the pan the other day, and I just couldn't believe the flavor. You didn't even honestly need to cook them. They're smoked sausage already. The cream cheese in there is perfect. It was just the right amount where it's not weird. But I know anybody that's been out on the town in Seattle, you're outside Soto Showbox late at night, the hot dog truck is there with a Seattle dog, and it's just lathered with cream cheese. It's not that. You've got a little bit of cream cheese just to enhance the flavor of the bacon and the jalapeno. It's not too spicy. It will linger a little bit if you eat 4 of them like I did at one time. But I just want to say, go out there, try them out. And if you like them as much as I do, reach out to Bavarian Meats and tell them not only sponsor our podcast, get a patch on those jerseys, because we'll buy them, man. I know we prefer none, but hey, that's just what we're going with there. And what'd you think? I sent you a couple Snapchats when I was just sitting there indulging on those dogs, and I felt like I was making you a little bit jealous.
I'm not a big cream cheese guy, gonna be honest with you. Everything else sounds absolutely delicious. I don't know if you saw my face when you said, cream cheese outside the, what'd you say, soda or?
Yeah, Soto Showbox. You can get those right there on the dogs out of the cart.
Yeah, just I can go with a little bit of cream cheese. But too much is too much. But by the way you're describing these, they sound fantastic.
They were great, and I kept it real easy, just straight bun and mustard. As I showed you, just not messing around with sausages, man. If it's a good sausage, but ultimately, if I was going to do it right, I'd do it Chicago style. I got to get a big pickle in there, some peppers, a little
peppers, chopped onion.
Well, I like grilled onion, but chopped fine.
A little bit of relish.
Going too down the rabbit hole, but again,
just no ketchup, mate.
Oh, not on sausage. There again, a bad hot dog. I'll throw some ketchup on, but nah, save that for meatloaf, man. That's that fake meat for sure. So
just as the resident Chicagoan, I had to toss that one out there.
Hey, fair enough, man. And,
but I'm also a fake Chicagoan. I'll put ketchup on it. I don't give
it. Whatever, man. It all depends on where you're at and how good the dog is. If it's a good dog, don't need it. But your standard dog. Nah, go ahead, throw it on there. You need that extra sugar. Moving on in Twitter, we got a couple new fans, which is great. And new hockey fans in general are always welcome. But someone that is a Duck fan of my other podcast actually has some experience. At Duck_Lindsay. Lindsay Duck, thank you for following us. She said she played hockey growing up in all the boys league because that's all there was. She's never had an allegiance to an NHL team, but now seems like the right time, and she's so excited. So we're really glad you can join with us. We hope you check this episode out, enjoy the shout out. But that's the same way I feel. I've never had an NHL team I really connected with. Here and there, teams that were going on runs like we talked about today. When teams are successful and you get a dynasty kind of going, I love those teams. There are a lot of people out there that are like, man, once teams are so successful, I hate seeing the same teams again and again. I'm the kind of guy that really appreciates sustained excellence and something that you can do. If you can get to this, even right now with Tampa Bay, like I really appreciate that. I'm happy we got Yanni Gourde. Hope he brings some of that over, but it's like 2 years in a row. That's already, and it's like, you're starting to, I know you're squinting, but I appreciate it. I like to see when streaks happen. And if we weren't getting our own team, it would be hard for me not to say, let's see that success sustain, because sometimes those dynasties elevate the sport. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen in Tampa. I'm not getting crazy here, but again, I just think that when those things happen, I know it raised my interest when the Pens were doing really well, when the Red Wings were doing really well. It's just those types of things, just those generate even, like those small interests, like Red Wings. I remember the first time I saw an octopus thrown on the ice, I'm like, what the hell is this? And then it goes to, Nashville, and you're seeing catfish on the ice, and those little things, even if they aren't, dynasties, those things you connect to with little bases of newfound success. And I'm hoping Seattle finds something here just like that to bring more people like Lindsay on board.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of bringing it a little full circle, not to hijack the idea of Lindsay coming on board, but how we talked about the local get-togethers, about learning to skate, maybe joining the team, even if it ends up not being competitive or whatever. If it's just people going out, getting on the ice, having fun, that's really all you need.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to. We've talked about, hopefully you can get out here sometime. We can find some place to skate, but it's something that I think everybody, it's like, I remember a lot of times growing up, even if it was roller skating, just skating is just a different experience in itself. And to be able to attribute that to sport too, it's just another layer of like competition and athleticism that you don't just get out of going and playing a pickup basketball game. Like there's so much more to it, where you're just going to get a different level of sore the next day, just skating.
I can attest to that after yesterday.
Yeah. You out there skating on your Red Bulls, my friend. So
in fairness, I didn't have Red Bull yesterday, but
okay.
I get what you're saying.
Okay. But anyways, we're while we're on the subject of a little bit of overindulgence, we had at See the Kraken, one of my favorites. He had a quote tweet that he said, I want whatever drugs this guy is on. It's not about the initial quote tweet he's tweeting. I responded on our Kraken account, and just, as a say no to drugs message, kids out there, I said, you don't need drugs. Drink along with our podcast, and it might make more sense to you. No promises though. And Thankfully, She Kraken was a great sport. He responded and said, I blacked out last weekend. No alcohol for me for a while. So I hope you were following along with the show. I hope it wasn't our faults, but cheers to that, my friend.
Yeah, hopefully there's not that drinking game where anytime one of us makes a blunder of any caliber, don't like I said last week, don't drink every time I say I'm mean. I know I'm trying to cut it out, but don't do it.
If you want,
you will die.
If you I'm not going to say anything extreme like that, but I'm going to tell you, be responsible. We want to have more Twitter fans, so the next time we do a third period, we get even more engagement. And yeah, we hope you've taken the week off, and that maybe by episode 6 you come around and you're feeling good again to hang with us. But hey, if not, you just follow us steady until October. We'll get your tolerance up, baby, because that's what we do here. And I think that's a great close to our third period. And I've got a new way for us to close out the third period instead of our, we've had a pretty consistent last week, a new introduction to our sound, but I think it's time for us to hear the third period end with possibly what could be what the goal horn sounds like. So that's the end of our third period, and that goal horn is fantastic because it emulates the sound of the ferries that you hear out here in the Seattle area. I know right here when I go out to Mukilteo and get to catch the ferries out there, that's the exact horn sound you hear. And if we can incorporate that in the goals, it's what they've put out there in promotional materials over a year ago. You can find it out there in a couple different forms, but man, that's going to be a fantastic goal horn. And I think, man, what a great episode. I think this is our, we sit here and we try and recap, we promote, we make sure you guys go check us out, subscribe if you haven't already, like us on all the platforms, Twitter, please engage us. Let us know if you saw anything on the show that you think we should be drinking for next week in our penalty box. But Jameson, what's one thing you took away from this episode that you really appreciate, enjoyed, some you hope we carry over in the next episode?
I like to think we're getting better every episode, just on a general level. Feel if had a little bit more flow than last week, which is something that I felt I was very weak on.
Oh no, my friend, you're so hard on yourself.
I mean, granted, you absolutely nailed the not only intro but the introductory area going forward. One thing, what was that that area you said going out to where?
I'm gonna have to double check
Mukilteo?
Mukilteo, yeah, that's
Gesundheit.
Yeah, a little bit just kind of, I'm in the Linwood area for those of you familiar. So you just kind of go westward. You're just gonna hit the coast right there. And kind of if I go north a little bit, Mukilteo, Everett, just kind of right in that area, and then you go to the coast and those ferries are all right there. It's fantastic. Next time I go out there, I'll have to get a couple photos because just on the right day, you see those waters and the boats taking off, man. There's nothing like it. And I think that they've done a fantastic job incorporating that into the logos, and all the fan stuff is, even as we talked about with Climate Pledge Arena, the water is such a huge thing here for everybody. And it's how people commute. It's how people, maintain. And I think that making that the center of, this, not just the NHL franchise, but that arena is huge for the community, is going to have huge positive benefits on the environment. So not to get too much on a tangent while we're in our sudden death wrap up, but just something that I wanted to mention again, because it's important. And I think, more teams that can, and franchises that can kind of think in this forward thinking direction, you're saving yourself money down the line when, these resources are going to be big costs to be able to put on an event that's like an NHL hockey game. So just something to consider. Next week, we're going to have so much to talk about. We've teased a little bit of it in this episode. We'll put a lot of that in next week. Anything you guys want to hear, you let us know in the comments. Let us know in the replies on Twitter, Instagram, and coming tomorrow. Well, today, since we're releasing this, Facebook group. Join now, Facebook page. It's all going up. And just thank you for joining us. And any last closing words, Jameson, before we play your outro music?
I mean, I think you said it all, my friend. Just thanks to everyone for listening, and looking forward to bringing you a little bit more next week.
Until next time, my friends, check out that music you're listening to right now if you like it. That's Where's Jameson. I won't plug it too much anymore. I do every week, but thank you. Love you. Follow us, subscribe, share with your friends, and keep it cracking.